South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style Paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles and Alex White.
Welcome back in. Welcome in for the first time. I guess welcome back to the studio if you've been with us all day. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White's here at Sports by the Book here on the first Saturday of November, Alex. We've unfortunately made it to the final month of the regular season, but an extra week this year because of the early start time. And we kick off the month, though. If you were just watching on the South Point Studio page and came over, thank you very much. Ralph Sirocco, who is the host of Race Day Las Vegas, it is the biggest day of racing of the year with the Breeders' Cup, day 2.
All champions.
All champions here today. Ralph, there was one play you guys forgot to mention, and it's right out of the gate here today.
Yes, it is. Just in case the folks are still watching from the Race Day show, and they should, Jonathan Ardoon had a horse in the first race. The horse is 15-1 on the morning line, so I want to make sure that we got it out at least partially. And in the first race at Del Mar, post time is at 10:05. He likes the one Spycatcher in the first. So we are going to try to make a little bit of a bankroll for the rest of the day. Nice. And I can't wait to see some of the big games going on today in college football. So if I was home, I'd be hitting my remote back and forth. But I'm going to be up here in the Grand Ballroom, so I'll ask them if they can squeeze in a little TV for that.
Before we let you head up there, because, of course, free party upstairs here at the South Point. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. Chris Andrews walking in full Penn State gear this morning. Full Breeders' Cup. And that, too.
Football. He'll be up there.
Penn State, Ohio State today, Ralph, is obviously the biggest game on the board. Alex and I will talk about it multiple times on this show between the two of us with Vinny when he comes in. Ohio State's a 3-point favorite here this morning. A 9 a.m. kick out here on the West Coast. What do you like here in that game?
I'm leaving right here and going right to the window. I'm betting Penn State.
Okay.
Money line or taking the points?
I'm taking the points.
Okay.
Taking the 3.
I'm taking the points. I'll be able to kiss my sister if I lose by a field goal.
That's right.
Race Day Las Vegas, of course, Wednesday through Sunday on South Point Studio channel, right here in this studio, 7 to 8 in the morning. Ralph, good luck. Good luck on all your plays today. I know you guys are very busy
I
with
really
everything.
Appreciate you guys giving us a shot to get that horse out. And by the way, if Sierra Leone wins, we'll have you watch on Suicide Watch.
Oh, no, not about that. It's just more that if you bet Sierra Leone, and I know Chris Andrews is on Sierra Leone in the Classic.
Yeah.
Getting a photo bomb, Ralph.
Yes.
Great job, man. I'll tell you. And I know we were full upstairs. Yes, full down here.
Full upstairs.
Full upstairs.
Yeah.
We'll be jam-packed today.
Yeah. They're already out there in the parking lot getting in.
I want you to know, though, I cashed a few tickets.
Ooh.
Very good.
Have another good day.
Oh.
And we'll hide his shoelaces.
Look, I think it's just forget me. I'm not going to be too upset. I'd be happy for you guys that you cashed because I didn't bet it. And I think that's the more courteous way to go about it.
You guys, you mean him?
Yeah. Well, isn't Vinny on it too?
Yeah, Vinny's
Vinny and him.
So is Kaluch.
Okay.
Well, now
I'm playing to my bosses here, Ralph.
You can't carry that much weight and win, man. Just can't do it.
I think he's calling me fat.
No.
Where did he come up with that? I'll see you guys later. Have a good show.
Chris,
Thanks a lot,
Ralph,
guys.
thank
I'm
you
going to
guys.
bed.
All right, let's get to it here. Let's look at these games, Alex White. Let's go in the ACC first, and we'll start in the Dome. Virginia Tech on the road at Syracuse here this morning, noon local time at the Cuse. Kyle McCord is, of course, coming off the nightmare.
Yep.
5 interceptions, 3 of them returned for picks, for pick sixes, I should say, last week on that Thursday night in Pitt where, look, Syracuse's defense actually played a pretty reasonable game in that game, but McCord gave them no chance with that performance. 41-13 final. Syracuse had 6 total rushing yards in that game as well. And now they take on a Va Tech team that we've talked about Va Tech, Alex, a lot on this show. This is a team with better closing skills that would probably be in the college football playoff discussion right now. Instead, they're at 5-3. They're coming off a win where their defense was awesome against Georgia Tech a week ago, but their offense really didn't do much of anything, sub 4 yards per play in that game. Hokies are 4-point favorites in this one with a total of 54.
Yeah, I took the 4 points here with Syracuse, and we talk about it a lot. You're never as bad as the last game, never as good as the last game, and I think that's the case here for Syracuse. Weird standalone weekday spot there with Syracuse and Pitt, and that was just an awful performance. And I expect Kyle McCord to have a much better game here in this one. So whether they win or not, I do think they can hang around and keep it close. And you mentioned it, Syracuse defense. I mean, they're 41st right now, ranked in the country in total yards allowed, compared to Virginia Tech, who is 60th, and then their offense is 83rd. So really, I mean, just looking at total yards allowed and total yards per game, you got the better team with Syracuse offense and defense, as long as they can protect the football and Kyle McCord does not throw it to the other team. But I think 4 points is a great play here for the dog.
You and I are in agreement here, but granted, I have not been able to help myself in a Syracuse game basically all year. Just every single week, I have felt that they have been undervalued. Week 1 was the only one where I thought they were properly valued. Underdog win outright at home against Georgia Tech. Underdog here in Las Vegas win outright against UNLV. Their losses this year, if you look at those 2 games, obviously last week is you just got to throw the tape out because that was just such a calamity. And you can't really even take much from that on the Pitt perspective either because you have 3 defensive touchdowns in one game. That's just such an aberration that what are you going to take from that? That Syracuse lost to Stanford, if you look at the box score, Syracuse was better than Stanford in that loss back in September. That was really more of just a fluky result that just had to do with the fact that Stanford had the ball last, Syracuse didn't get a stop, and Stanford made the kick. I wouldn't be shocked if Syracuse wins this game outright. If you want to sprinkle on the money line, go for it at that plus 165. All right, let's go to another ACC game, Alex. Louisville on the road at Clemson. This is an evening game in Death Valley. Alex, this is the best team Clemson has faced since week 1. We went through this yesterday on Football Frenzy on Friday. Here are the teams that Clemson has defeated since getting blasted by Georgia in the second half. App State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, and Virginia. I think I mentioned one bowl team in there. So this is a huge step up for Clemson here today against Louisville, who, yes, is 5-3. I get it. But the 3 losses have come against Notre Dame in South Bend by a touchdown. They had the ball with a chance to tie the game late. At home, a touchdown loss against SMU. SMU only has 1 loss on the season. And a touchdown loss at home to Miami. Miami's undefeated. So Louisville has actually been able to hang with all these higher-end teams. Now, granted, their best win this season is probably at Boston College, so they haven't really beaten anyone either. but this feels like a lot of points at 10.5 here with Louisville. You missed the 11. Yeah, I get it. But I still think anything double digits is okay with the Cardinals in this game.
I'm going to be honest. My Clemson number is higher than some people's in the power ratings, and my Louisville number is lower. So I made this 14, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not laying the points here with Clemson, even though that's what my numbers say I should do, because you're right. I mean, you just broke down their schedules, and Louisville, I like Tyler Shuck too. I think he's done a good job this year, and 20-5 touchdown interception ratio. They lost the turnover battle, but still won to Boston College, so that's impressive in itself. But yeah, I have this Clemson team pretty high, so it's a stay away for me in this game. Maybe, I know it's a high total at 62. I did make it a little higher at 64, so that's the only way I would lean here, is expecting both offenses to get going.
I don't have a problem with going over on this total either. Clemson's offense has looked awesome in this stretch. And this is, again, a big step up for their defense that, yes, was really good in the first half against Georgia and against everyone else, but awful in that second half once Georgia figured it out. All right, let's go to Orlando here. I don't want to spend too much time on this game, even though I did give this out on Punchlines yesterday. Arizona's a 6-point underdog at Central Florida. Look, a lot of changes this week for UCF. New play caller. Malzahn gave up his play calling responsibilities. He fired his defensive coordinator, likely changing quarterbacks for the third time this year as well. Arizona's been as big of a disappointment as anyone in the country, period. Yes, I know Florida State's still in the league of their own. I get it. But 6, I'll very happily take 6 with all this. Again, neither of these teams are any good. The loser of this game is going to have to win out in order to get bowl eligible. I'll take 6 with Arizona very happily. And if Central Florida beats me with their third quarterback of the year, so be it. I took the Cats here.
This game is more intriguing than it really should be, but with all those firings, you'd expect, everybody else in the program to really step up. And so I lean a little bit to the home team here. I mean, Arizona, it's a shame what we have seen from Brett Brennan in his first year here at Arizona. They're 1-7 against the spread, but they do have the talent. So couldn't they win this game outright or even cover the 6? Absolutely. But nothing for me in this one. We'll see. I mean, do we know who is starting for UCF? Because that was earlier in the week. They said they were going to decide as the week went on, and I didn't look back into it. So
right now, they're going with the we're not going to tell you deal. I think it's going to be Dylan Risks, personally. Now, could it be Ja'Cory Brown? Yes, absolutely could be in play. We know it won't be KJ Jefferson. Now we already know.
It should be.
I don't know. All those guys have played awful this year down there. I think Brown has been the best of the bunch, but oof. Again, Central Florida 6, especially after what we've watched with the Central Florida team, other than that game in Ames where they had Iowa State dead to rights and just couldn't put them away. Ugly across the board for both of these teams this year. All right, let's go to West Point next, and this number has crashed. And I looked at the numbers this morning. I'm like, why did this number just crash all of a sudden? Well, Bryson Daly, Army's quarterback, is out. Undisclosed injury or illness. Great. So we have no idea what's wrong with Daly. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Chris Lowe of ESPN, the first one to report it. Dwayne Coleman will get the start at quarterback today, a junior making his first career start for the Black Knights. Commander-in-Chief game. Air Force, as we talked about on this show, this is the worst version of Air Force we've seen in a very long time. Daly being out moves the line 4 whole points to 18, Alex. And more importantly, I think the sum moves the total 3.5 points from 42 to 38.5. What do we do now? Do we just stay off of this? Do we see how Army looks without their star quarterback in this game? I don't think Air Force is going to be able to take advantage of it, but 18 points without Daly feels like a ton now.
It's really tough because, these two do know each other very well, but, I can't do anything with this Air Force team and what we have seen this year. Their last win is August 31st against Merrimack, 21-6, and then it's just been all losses, and by quite a big margin here. But Army did win last year, 23-3, so that scares me as well. And we didn't even know about this Army team then. They were pretty bad last year going into that game. Air Force was the favorite, so I think they'll have the right pieces in place to get this done. 18 is a big number here, but nothing for me in this one. I asked you immediately, what's the total? But that's already crashed as well. So nothing. I don't want to go under that 38.5.
Yeah. Air Force lost to Navy 34-7 earlier in the year. Navy racked up about 7.5 yards of play in that game. I don't know what this Air Force team just doesn't inspire.
Navy is a lot better
confidence
with passing, right? Than we've seen
Horvath
even
is
from
a better thrower, yes, than Daly, even when Daly's out there. Again, we don't have much of anything on Dwayne Coleman today for Army, so I don't know. This is an in-game spot. We'll be able to see, I think we'll be able to tell pretty quickly what this game's going to be all about. Again, a Commander-in-Chief game. One more to go after this, the Army-Navy game, after everything has been determined for the college football playoff. All right, let's go to the Southeastern Conference. Vanderbilt on the road at Auburn this morning. Alex, it just feels like another week where everyone is undervaluing the Commodores yet again. They were in the game the whole way against Texas, losing by a field goal when it was all said and done. Auburn, to their credit, finally looked good last week. Why was that? They didn't turn the ball over. A nice 2-touchdown win in Lexington where they were clearly the right side the whole way. This has moved from 6 to 7.5 on this one. Alex, we're getting the hook in this game at 7.5 with Vanderbilt. Very happily take that. And if Auburn shows me 2 weeks in a row they can play mistake-free football, all right, so be it. Tip the hat if Auburn's able to cover 7 and a hook here at home.
I'm with you. I jumped in here at the 7.5. Not a huge play for me because it's not enough with my numbers. I did make Auburn a 6-point favorite, kind of where the books opened it up. But I'm with you. I think we're still undervaluing this Vanderbilt team. And I heard some people say, well, in the other games you're getting almost 20 points here with Vandy. Now this isn't enough. It doesn't matter. They didn't need the 20 points, right? They kept that game close. They beat Alabama. They beat Kentucky, lost to 3 against Texas. So I think 7.5 is a good number here. Comparing the two quarterbacks though, and we've talked about Diego Pavia a lot, 8.4 yards per attempt, 13-3 ratio, also has 4 rushing touchdowns. Peyton Thorne on the other side, pretty good numbers as well. Does drop off here, completing 62% of his passes, but 8.6 yards per attempt and a 12-3 ratio. So if they can take care of the football, this should be a really good game between these two. But yeah, I don't know if they should be this much of a gap power rated, and I know the home field is factored in there as well. But we'll see. This will tell us a lot about both teams today.
Vanderbilt still needs one more win for bowl eligibility. Auburn definitely needs to win this game, and then beat Monroe next 2 weeks from now, and then they have to beat either A&M or Alabama to get bowl eligible. So Auburn's path is brutal, to put it politely, and really need this game, but I don't think it matters. Pavia also, remember, there's a history between Pavia and Hugh Freeze, because of course, Pavia played against Hugh Freeze when he was still at Liberty. And then last year, famously, New Mexico State went to Jordan-Hare and beat Auburn.
Yes.
And they beat them convincingly a year ago with Pavia at quarterback. So there is some familiarity. And I know Hugh Freeze said earlier in the week he'd be very happy never to see Diego Pavia again after this. And he meant it in the kindest way humanly possible with that. All right, let's keep it in the SEC, Alex. Let's go to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Hogs, 7.5 behind us. There's some 8 in the market. It's mostly 8 in the market now on this. And I actually hopped in on that 8 a little bit earlier, hosting Ole Miss here. So Arkansas is a little bit of a confusing team, right? Just the way that they have gone about things. They're going to make a bowl game. They get Louisiana Tech in 2 weeks, which will likely be win number 6 on the year. Their stretch the rest of the year is pretty brutal in conference. Ole Miss, Texas, and Mizzou, their last 3 games, but they do get 3 of those in Fayetteville. It all depends on what type of Arkansas effort we're getting here, Alex.
Yeah.
Are we going to get the Arkansas team where the defense was awesome against Tennessee and was able to hold them down and find a way to upset them? Or are we going to get a game where they look like they did against LSU, where their defense actually held up okay in that game, but they turned the ball over 3 times? Which version of this team are we going to get? If we get the version that played Tennessee, they're live to win this game outright. If we get the version that played LSU, Ole Miss probably covers this game. I think it's somewhere in between, And 8 points is just too much. 7.5 also would work as well. Too much for me to pass up. I'm on the Hogs.
I don't hate it at all. I did make this number right there at 8 with Ole Miss favored on the road here. I did take a little bit on the under. Not a huge play for me, but under that 53.5. More because I made the game 49. I think that's a big enough gap here. In conference, Ole Miss has averaged 24 points per game and allowed 16.5. And you talked about their defense yesterday and being kind of underrated with the Rebels there. But in conference, Arkansas averaging 25.5 points a game and allowing 21.5. So I know they aren't really known for their defense either. They're a better offensive team. But if they want to hang around this one, they're going to have some big stops here against Ole Miss. So a little bit on the under. It is confusing. You talked about Arkansas, which one? But what about Ole Miss? Because we've really seen them slip up. And then the one confusing game for me is 27-3 win over South Carolina. And I'm about to talk about South Carolina later on and them really hanging around against these big schools. And Ole Miss just completely shut them down. But yeah, I like the under. I think that correlates a little bit with your Arkansas hanging around in this one.
Yeah, I think with that South Carolina game, it was just more of a product of a bounce-back scenario from Ole Miss where they were clearly unfocused against Kentucky. That's the only way you can justify them losing that game to the Cats. And then they were focused the next week.
Yep.
I think it was just that. Last week against Oklahoma, they were awful in the first half, and then really just it was 16-0 in the second half in favor of Ole Miss. It felt a lot worse than that watching that game because Oklahoma's offense just had no chance to move the ball in that second half against the Rebels. All right, let's keep it in these. A lot of these games going early, and they actually are stacking them correctly in the rotation numbers for once. Duke taking on Miami down in South Beach here. Alex, I against my better judgment, I took 21 with the Blue Devils in this game against Miami. Now, the Canes, forget the Duke side of things, where I think Duke has been relatively lucky for the most part. Last week was them and SMU played probably the weirdest game of the college football season, where SMU beats them in overtime by a point. SMU is -6 in the turnover battle, but Duke is also missing 4 kicks in that game, which ends up costing Duke the game. Miami, we've talked about them. They've been begging to get beat basically for the last month. Last week, they ended up covering some numbers of that game, didn't cover all of them. I mean, I did not think Miami was overly impressive in that 22-point win against Florida State. Yeah, they ended up at about 6 yards per play, but really messed around for the majority of that game. The previous 3 weeks, obviously, they needed a help from a review in Louisville to end up winning that game by a touchdown. They needed a help in a review against Virginia Tech, famously on the Hail Mary that wasn't. And then they needed an epic comeback against Cal. Miami is begging to get beat. I'm not saying they're going to lose today, but I do expect Duke to at least be able to hang in. Now, if Miami blasts them, so be it. But this is basically the same line as it was last week against Florida State. And there's no way Duke and Florida State should be power rated the same at this point, Alex.
That is a great point. They do have similarities where both defenses are a lot better than their offense. And Duke right now, 32nd in total yards allowed, and really good against the pass. So if they can slow them down, that would be the way to do it. I have nothing in this one. I thought the total and the side were just right. I've been on Duke quite a bit this year, too, taking the points with them. But Miami does have home revenge from last year, and you know how I feel about that revenge. So I think that they will be ready for this one.
21 only taken on Duke on my end for this one. All right, let's go to the game right below it. TCU and Baylor. The Baylor Bears are 3-point favorites at home. The point I made with this game yesterday on Football Frenzy with the guys, Alex, is these mid-tier Big 12 teams are horrible to figure out at this point. Really difficult to figure these teams out from a side perspective. Now, TCU was very lucky to win last week, coming from behind and beating Texas Tech. Baylor, to their credit, has been much better the last few weeks. They blasted Texas Tech in Lubbock. They were the correct side most of the way against Oklahoma State. You could argue. Still think Oklahoma State should have at least pushed that 7 a week ago.
Yes. They did fumble at the 1 yard line.
Yeah, whatever. Oklahoma, everything that could go wrong for Oklahoma. They're getting the total reverse of what it was last year for them. A Baylor 3, I think that's as fair of a number as you could have cobbled up here in this game, Alex.
I did take Baylor as a contest pick on, I think it was the Golden Nugget. I have the Baylor Bears. It does worry me a little bit because my dad still has a pretty high number with TCU, so he has not lost faith there with Sonny Dykes' team. But I like Baylor, especially since the bye week is really where you can actually pinpoint the turning point for them. Sawyer Robinson has been very good for them, 8 yards per attempt and 17-4 ratio. So I really don't have faith in this TCU team and what we've seen from them this year. 2-6 against the spread. So I'm going with the Baylor Bears in this one.
More fortitude than I do in this matchup. There's nothing. Only in game, because there have been plenty of in-game opportunities where you could just get big numbers with teams in the Big 12, and these games seemingly are not over for the most part. So nothing, at least pre-flop on my end.
If we can get enough from TCU's offense too, I mean, 63.5 seems pretty low. We've seen these Baylor games go very high, but we've also seen some duds from TCU.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the, problem is you get some early scores, you're going to be in the mid-70s, and then it gets hard to get over once you're going in-game. All right. We're going to the bottom of the sheet here because we have to bring this game up multiple times because it's the biggest game of the day. Ohio State on the road at Penn State. Alex, we'll mention it with Vinny as well to get what the action is behind the counter when he comes in about 20 minutes from now. It opened Ohio State 4. It's been steady on Ohio State 3 now for a few days. The total has been more active. Basically back to the opener, 47 initially down, now back up the ladder to 47.5, 48, depending on where. Drew Aller is going to play, and it looks like he's going to play without a brace on that knee as well. So he's a lot healthier than I think everyone let on this week for Penn State. And Alex, I'll give you the floor first. This is a game that is going to go a long way to determining what the college football playoff and the Big Ten championship game, for that matter, is going to look like over the next few weeks.
I think you have to factor in the fact that Ohio State does already have a loss, right? They're going to be very motivated for this game. Plus, they've won 7 consecutive matchups in this rivalry, and they want to keep that going as well. If I was getting the hook, I'd probably jump in a little bit here on Penn State plus 3.5 because the Drew Aller news earlier in the week kind of kept me off of that, even though I think their backup was very good last week against Wisconsin and can move that offense. But the total is where I jumped in because I saw it moving down. And then when it got to 45, I jumped in at 45.5 here because I thought that they were just getting ridiculously low. And I know they're both good defenses, but I think that both offenses are going to have success here, especially Ohio State. They really tried to run the ball last week against Nebraska, and it was just not working out. Like, they are going to have to take deep shots and use their wide receivers, which they have a lot of talent in that position. So, and if they do that, then Penn State's going to be forced to pass the ball and take some long shots as well. So over 45.5 for me. I wouldn't go over 48. I made this game 50. But yeah, nothing aside. I lean a little bit to the dog here. I can't blame people for taking the 3 points. This is the best Penn State team we've seen in quite some time.
So here's the big issue in this game, more so than anything, where we've talked about this so much in the past with James Franklin in big games against high-end teams. And you look at Penn State, where Franklin in his career at Penn State is 3-17 outright. Forget the numbers against Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State, he's 1-9 against them. Penn State as a dog has lost 14 of the last 16 outright. Wow. The only 2 wins have come in Camp Randall. Not last week. They were favored in that game. Penn State has lost 12 straight regular season games against top 10 opponents. Now, again, we don't love looking at the AP poll when we're looking at betting numbers, but that tells you that they're bad against high-end teams. And I've been sitting on this the whole week, and even 30 minutes ago when I told Ralph and company here on Race Day, like, we have to see how Drew Aller looks. Drew Aller looks healthy. Penn State has no excuse this go around, because this is the first time that they have the better quarterback in this matchup in a long while. Drew Aller is better than Will Howard. And we saw, look, Howard played a good game against Oregon, but in the end, a big key blunder by him was what ended the game. And in the end here, I like the better quarterback. And Penn State's ever going to beat Ohio State, this has got to be the time. The rosters are as close to even as they're going to ever be because Ohio State's always going to get more talent. But you have the better quarterback. Lean to Penn State. Again, I'm not going to bet anything until I see Aller out there and see how he looks against the high-end defense, which the Buckeyes are.
Yep.
But if you made me play this, at the moment, it would be that plus 150 on the money line. I would just take the shot on Penn State to get it done finally against the high-end opponent. And then, I mean, the ramifications of a Penn State loss really aren't much. It's just that Penn State has to win out. And if you look at Penn State's schedule the rest of the way, they're going to be favored in every one of those games, and they're probably going to be favored by double digits in all four of the, well, maybe not at Minnesota, but the other three games, they're going to be double digits against Washington at home. They're going to be double digits at Purdue. They're going to be double digits against Maryland at home. Minnesota probably a touchdown in Minneapolis. So they're going to be favored in their last four games, still probably on pace to go 11-1, get to the college football playoff. If Ohio State loses, that's when things could get really interesting here. Because Ohio State, yeah, they get Purdue and Northwestern, they're probably both going to beat the heck out of both of those teams. They get a Michigan team that can't really score, but that is obviously the ultimate rivalry game. But then they get that Indiana game.
Yep.
Give me a situation where they have to beat Indiana, which, okay, it'll be a huge step up for the Hoosiers, but won't be comfortable for Ohio State. And 10-2, I think will be good enough to get them in. But if their best win's Indiana, it might be a little more sweaty than it has to be for the Buckeyes going down the stretch here.
Unless it's a big win. If they blow out Indiana, that would really, I think, help them playoff.
They could also win today and not have to worry much about anything because a 10-2 Ohio State team with a win at Penn State's getting in the college football playoff one way or another. And that's if they were to lose to Indiana, which I still don't think will happen. All right, let's keep it in the Big Ten or something a little bit different now, Alex White. Oh, we actually get to some underdogs you and I both like now. We go to Purdue, where, again, I'm confused by what the bettors have done with this game. I thought Northwestern as a small favorite, even in West Lafayette, was fine. But the bettors have flipped this thing 4.5 points to Purdue minus 2.5. Alex, there's just some teams every year that the bettors just love, and there's really not much of a reason for them to love them, and that's this Purdue team this year that's only covered twice. They covered against Illinois, and they covered against Indiana State week 1. That's it. That's an FCS opponent, Indiana State. I'm on Northwestern money line. The problem is, I mentioned this last week, Lausch has been brutal the last few weeks for Northwestern. Under 50% completion percentage, under 120 yards passing in both of those games. But I still think Northwestern's got enough to win this game on the road. I took a money line on this one.
I was pretty shocked to see you and Chris have this make your card for plays this week because this was a immediate pass. I do not like this game at all. I'm with you, though. I made Northwestern a small favorite here on the road, so it would be the dog. But this Northwestern team has been very unpredictable as well. Last year, we saw them go on that nice win streak. We really haven't seen that fight from them. I mean, they looked non-competitive in a lot of their games against good teams. So we'll see what we get here from them today. I think they're the better team, so they should win this outright. But it was a stay away for me.
Keeping it within that region of the country, Illinois at home against Minnesota. They're a 3-point dog for a lot of the week this week with Minnesota getting the action. There's even a small touch at 3.5. Back to 2.5 here this morning on this one. I just took money line on Illinois. Wrong team favorite to me in this game, Alex. I thought Illinois should have been about a 1.5, maybe even a 2-point favorite in this game. Gophers have played some good football of late. Better. A lot of people think Illinois has just been lucky so far this year. I thought last week was the fade spot of Illinois. It was. Oregon destroyed them. But now they get back to not playing an elite team. Illinois' defense should be able to do some things in this game. I like the Illini outright in this game.
I'm pretty shocked with the Sharps not being on the same side as us and just being one-way action on Minnesota this entire week. I'm not surprised right now to finally see some buyback here on Illinois because I'm with you. I think they should be the favorite in this one. And Minnesota won 3 in a row, but they were very fortunate in all those games. They won the turnover battle against USC, against UCLA, and then last week against Maryland, but they were by far the better team against Maryland. Illinois, they only have 2 losses this year, and that's at Penn State and it's at Oregon. So I think they'll be ready to go go in this one. It's a good spot for them at home. You mentioned that yesterday. At home as a dog. They've been very successful this year. So I took the 3 points, but I don't hate the money line at all.
Going to East Lansing next. Michigan State hosting Indiana. Of course, the darlings of the country. Curtis Rourke back. Big news for the Hoosiers after missing one game, and Washington did not matter in that game because Indiana just continues to cover.
Yep.
They just cover. This team is undefeated so far against the number this year. 7.5, Alex, 53.5 the total. Actually, just legitimately as I spoke. How about that? It's been a while since we had that. Legitimately as I spoke, this number just moved to 54. So I will tell you this. The total, if Michigan, this is a correlated game. You like Michigan State, you like the under. You like Indiana, you like the over in this game.
Yep.
I would lean to taking the points with Michigan State, but I'm not strong enough to advocate that as a full-on play, Alex.
Yesterday, I got 8.5 here with Michigan State, so that's where I am. I don't really like anything under it because I wasn't going to jump in, and I have not jumped in front of the Indiana train yet this year, but I thought that number was a good spot to take them. I like Jonathan Smith, comes over from Oregon State, brings a lot of his players and coaches. It's funny. I mean, this is basically a James Madison versus Oregon State game with these two, but I think Michigan State's been way more competitive than we thought they would be, and especially defensively. Right now, 24th in total yards allowed. So can they hang around and slow down this Indiana offense? We'll find out. But Indiana, their schedule just keeps getting tougher and tougher. They're going to play better and better defenses up here. So I like the Spartans plus the points. I don't love it here at 7.5. Maybe wait for end game. Try and get a little bit more.
Now to a game that's ugly. Florida State hosts North Carolina. Alex, this actually spurred a big-time discussion on the show yesterday about the transfer portal and how
I heard
Florida
that.
State basically just swung and missed on everything in the portal, and it's caused a season from hell for the Seminoles. North Carolina's a 2.5-point favorite, and this one total 51. I know you have a bet on this game that I know you my numbers say this, but
Speaking of that really quick, though, it's going back to Michigan State, who has Aiden Childs as their quarterback, right? He sat behind DJU. DJU ended up going to Florida State, and that was a bust there.
Yeah, Childs has been totally fine at Michigan State. I don't think he's moved the needle, but he hasn't been a negative for them this year.
No, and he was a 5-star recruit going there. So anyways, North Carolina, Florida State, we are going under. And now if you are watching our show, you get an even better number than I got because I got 50.5. I don't want you to be worried because one of the things you remember with North Carolina is giving up 70 points to James Madison. But since then, they have held teams to an average of 27.5 points. So they've turned their defense around. They're coming off their best offensive game, but Florida State, if they still have anything, it is their defense. And I think that they can slow these Tar Heels down. So I made this game 44. Big 6-point difference here for me with these two. So unders the play in this ugly game.
Let's nothing. I will probably not even have this on a screen at any point today. So, but Alex, you're a lot more fortitude than me today on some of these. This was the immediate no thank you game for me with UNC and Florida State.
Well, I've come to realize now, right, because I've got 2 contests that require 7 picks each.
Okay.
And then I've got the review journal, which is 5.
Right.
I don't like to go too heavy on any one play. So I have to have at least
Spread
10
the
to
wealth.
12. Yeah, and kind of spread them out.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, let's go to the greatest cocktail party, the world's largest cocktail party in Jacksonville here today, Florida, Georgia. Alex, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little bit surprised at how this game has been bet. Opened 16.5, got to 17 quickly, and then it's been all Florida down to 14.5. Total hasn't moved at all. 52 the whole week here behind us. I said this yesterday. If we see a 14, I'm going to be on Georgia. If not, I'll just stay off. See what happens in game here. I got to give Billy Napier credit for getting Florida to stabilize things here because.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. After those first few weeks, I thought Billy Napier wasn't even going to make it to this game here on November the 2nd. But here's the one thing with Florida. Other than that Tennessee game, if you look at the 3 best teams that they played this year, it's Tennessee. They lost in overtime and quite frankly should have won that game if they didn't implode. The other 2 games against high-end teams, Miami destroyed them. That game was never competitive. And A&M, yeah, I know it only ended up being a 13 margin. A&M was totally in command the whole game in that one. So I'm just concerned about the elevation in competition here for Florida. And I also think Georgia's in a different league than Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it would be only Georgia, but see if you can get a 14 by the time this game goes.
You're right. With credit to Florida and Billy Napier, because they're 3-1 in their last 4, and they covered in 4 straight. Mm-hmm. This is the biggest game of the year for them coming up here. But it's really their defense that I'm concerned with, and they're 75th in total yards allowed. So even though Georgia's offense has not been the Georgia offense that we are used to, I still think that they'll be okay in this one. I'm with you. If there was a 14, I would be willing to lay it here.
Yeah, just see if you can get a 14. If not, wait in game. Maybe Florida scores first, and you get a better number on the Bulldogs in this one. All right, wow, there's some bad matchups in the ACC today. Sorry, ACC. Don't mean to throw you under the bus. NC State hosts Stanford. This is another game that's going at the top of the hour. 9.5 with NC State. There was some 10 for a good chunk of the week. They finally took that off of the South Point here this morning. 46.5 your total on this one, Alex.
I made NC State 13 here in this one. So I love that 9.5 getting under the 10 here. There's a lot of factors that go into this. And I mean, including NC State and the quarterback that has come in now for McCall. And now he gets an extra week to prepare coming off a bye week here. And he's did relatively good in the last few games that we saw from him. On the other side, Stanford, long travel, 9 a.m. game, that time zone thing. So I think that the home team is going to be okay in this one, win by 2 touchdowns.
Cross this one off immediately because Stanford's on the no-bet list for me at this point. They just not figured a game with them the whole year. So we're just going to put them on the no-bet list and not worry about them the rest of the season. All right, let's go to Ames next. Iowa State, 13.5-point favorites against Texas Tech. 56.5 total. This has been mostly Texas Tech action because it opened 14.5. It went below the 14 and has not gotten back. Got as low as 13 on this. Alex, I want to see in-game on this more than anything. These Big 12 games, again, even with the higher-end teams, you can find some action in game. Even 2 weeks ago, when Iowa State needed a late comeback to beat Central Florida, you could have had a good number in game on them to win the game outright. Iowa State's still the class of this league, even though I still have my question marks about the consistency of Rocco Becht. Texas Tech, I don't know. I don't know what we're getting on a weekly basis out of them. It could be what it was against Baylor 2 weeks ago where their defense imploded. It could be last week where they're up double digits in the fourth quarter and then their defense implodes again against TCU at the end and they lose by a point.
But they have been very competitive in most of their games,
Mostly.
Texas Tech.
Mostly.
So I have nothing. I told you before the show I wish I was on Tech, but I'm not going to jump in here at this bad number, especially I made Iowa State a 16-point favorite here at home. They're 4-0 at home, even against the number. So I lean to Iowa State, but I'm not going to do anything. As you mentioned, in game, I would be more interested in getting more points here with the dog. So if Iowa State goes up, and it looks like Texas Tech can move the ball, and I could get more 17 or 21 even, I would jump in here with the dog.
Let's go to Oklahoma State and Arizona State next. This game gets moved up 3.5 hours because of inclement weather going through the state of Oklahoma here today. So this is now a 12:30 Pacific start. Pokes, everything that can go wrong for Oklahoma State has this year. Just basically all the luck that happened a year ago is reversed in epic fashion. They need to start winning games if they're going to be bowl eligible. Arizona State has been one of the pleasant surprises in the Big 12. They're 5-2. Alex, I just touched 5. It went back to 4.5 now after a quick touch of 5. I don't know if you can justify laying 4.5 with Arizona State on the road, and I don't know if you can justify betting Oklahoma State in any fashion at this point. So this is a pass for me in this game.
I did it. I'm on the dog here.
Okay.
4.5 with Oklahoma State. I was ready to jump in at 3.5. I'm going to be honest, and I know that it has been a total disappointment for the Cowboys, but they have not given up on their coach just yet. And we saw that the last 2 weeks. They could have beat BYU, and then they were right in that game last week against Baylor. So I think we're going to see a good effort still here from the Cowboys. And then If they lose this one in terrible fashion, then maybe we can start talking about them giving up on their coach and giving up on the season. But really looking at Arizona State's wins, I mean, Wyoming's a mess this year.
Yes.
Mississippi State, that was before they made the switch to Van Buren Jr. at quarterback.
Still bad anyway.
Was complete mess then. They're more competitive now. And then they beat Utah, where Cam Rising was completely broken in that game. So I think they've been very fortunate. Kansas is in there too, who's been a mess. Fortunate Texas State did not wake up till the second half in that game. So we'll see. I might be way too low on Arizona State in this one, but I'm taking the points here with the Cowboys. I wouldn't be surprised if they win this outright and then finally get a win in their conference play.
Let's go to Dallas next. ACC matchup between Pitt and SMU. Very intriguing game, Alex, where Eli Holstein has been cleared. He'll play. It's SMU 7 right now. This did touch 8, but that was when we didn't know if it was going to be Holstein or Yarnell. At quarterback, a little bit surprised that this number actually hasn't dipped a little more with Holstein knowing he's going to be in. I like the over more so than anything in this game. I think Pitt's defense is boom or bust. I think if they're not forcing turnovers, they will give up points. SMU's defense, same sort of deal.
Yep.
I think this game's played in the mid-60s, Alex. I like this thing over.
And I think we're actually getting a gift here because they opened at 60 and bettors are betting it down because we saw 3 straight unders with Pittsburgh, but they played against teams that really struggled offensively. So I'm with you. I went over this 57. These two teams do play very fast as well. Pitt's the 4th quickest of all FBS teams at 22.7 seconds per play, and SMU comes in at 25th quickest at 25.2 seconds per play. You already mentioned about both defenses, so I'm expecting each team to have about 30 points in this one.
Yeah, it feels like a game should have been 63, 64, 63 and a half, something in that pocket, which probably means we're getting 19-13 probably.
I like it. I lean to SMU in this one as well. We've talked a lot about Pittsburgh and them being pretty fraudulent. And
yeah, I have no clue. Because I think Holstein's better than Jennings if you're going on the quarterback scenario where, SMU kind of had their bad game last week and got away with it against Duke. So in-game on the side, but the total better for both of us, I would say.
yes.
All right, real quick here. K-State, 12.5-point favorites at Houston, keeping it in the state of Texas. 46 the total. This would only be a lean to the favorite in this one now that we're sub 13 for me, Alex.
Absolutely nothing for me in this one. K-State 7-1. Look like one of the best here in the Big 12. Just 3-5 against the spread, though. I think that number is right. I made it right there. K-State -12. Houston, you don't know which Houston you are getting. So,
Alex, you have a play on USC and Washington here. Huskies 2-point dogs at home in this one. 55.5 your total. Again, the old Pac-12 matchup now in the Big Ten.
you're probably going to be surprised, but this is one favorite that I do like. And
Okay.
we'll see how it goes here. But I still believe that this USC team is a good football team. I still have them in about top 15 in my power ratings. They've been very unfortunate. They've lost some games that they really shouldn't have lost. But I will tell you this. They have not been good on the road, and this is a tough place to play. So they really have to be focused and dialed in on this one. But, I mean, right now they are playing to try and play a bowl game.
Yep.
So they've got to put it all out there. I think Miller Moss is a good quarterback, though, and I think Lincoln Riley will have his team ready for this one.
Vinny, say the phrase.
Two-way action at the desk.
Yeah, I'm on Washington. Chris and Vinny brought this up yesterday, and I'll actually bring Vinny in as we're going through this here. This is one of the more underratedly great home field advantages in the country, and USC has struggled, especially of late, to go up to Seattle and be competitive in these games. I agree with you that Miller Moss is the better quarterback in this game. 100% agree there. They just have found ways to lose close games this year. And I think if this game is tight, it's favored Washington. If USC is going to win, and I'm not saying this can't happen, USC wins this game by 2 touchdowns, and it's not really a close game, big time advantage USC. But if this game's tight, I think it's advantage Washington.
Yeah.
Don't love it, but I did take a little bit of the money line on the Huskies in this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Vinny's here, by the way, everyone.
good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Crew, everybody.
Yeah.
Chat, everybody. Ready
Yes,
ready for the day?
Yes, real quick, you mentioned the chat. JR at the ballpark, good morning as always. Joseph's in there as well. Dean Hilt and Minidar, who knows might be having a big day with the horse racing there, right, Vinny?
Oh,
Breeders' Cup.
Yeah.
Right. Sierra Leone in the Classic.
Yeah, well, I'm not on it, so congratulations
So-
on your winning ticket, Vinny.
We had Ralph's show the other day with Jonathan Hardoon, John Lindo, Chris, myself, and Dwayne Colucci. And all three of us, by the way. Chris, Colucci, and I all like Sierra Leone, so independent of each other. So we'll see what happens.
and you can find that show on South Point Studio
Yeah.
YouTube channel.
Yep.
No.
So
that's,
after
great.
this, go to that before you get your horse picks in.
Yeah. So enjoy the races today. Getting back to this game too. If you like Washington, then you like them to win the game with such a close spread. So it's not surprising that they're drawing some action on the money line as well. And really, both these teams trying to get bowl eligible, right? I mean, both of them sitting at 4-4. And Washington, especially, trying to rebuild the program, right, with a new regime, and so it's a tough place to play. Alex, you hit it on the head. Jeff, you as well. SC, this late in games, boy, I tell you what, the fourth quarter is their Achilles, and we'll see what happens today with this one. But good game, good action on the game. Two-way action at the desk. Mostly Washington money though at the counter so far.
Well, USC, they really improved their defense from last year,
Sure.
but now we're definitely seeing some injuries, and they just don't have the depth yet in all those spots that they need defensively. But
I want to quick hit two other Big Ten games that are not the most intriguing together here. Both of these in Middle America. Wisconsin's a 3-point underdog at Iowa first. I really am looking for reasons to bet Wisconsin in this game, and I just can't quite get there. I'm concerned Locke's going to turn the ball over multiple times in this game, and that's going to lead to Iowa being able to win this game, something in the pocket of like 24-10, just converting on turnovers. So this is a stay off. It is kind of weird to say this, Vinny and Alex. A 42 in an Iowa game feels high.
They've gone over a few.
I know.
weeks.
Well, they've scored 40 twice this year.
More this year than last year, for sure. No question about it. I mean, and we've had to adjust. But, I mean, the total's been pretty steady in this game, 42 and a half. But, clearly in this game, it was, we opened 4. It got as low as 2.5. So now sitting at 3. No secret what we don't need. But a lot of action. Good business on this game.
2.5, it was a play for me on Iowa, but I missed it. So I did go under this total. And I think Wisconsin's defense, they're ranked 22nd right now in total yards allowed. I think they'll be able to slow down this explosive Iowa offense. They are 7-1 to the over, though.
Well, in comparison to past years, they're the 07 Patriots. I mean, Iowa 3 at home. UCLA, Nebraska. Huskers had a shot to pull the mega upset last week. Just couldn't quite do it at the end. Alex, I don't like UCLA. Their record, everything about that, they're just not there yet. It's going to take some time for Deshaun Foster to get that program back where it should be. Granted, they did win the last time we saw them 2 weeks ago at Rutgers. I have nothing, even though, again, lower total than the Iowa game here at 39 on this one.
I have nothing in this one either. I think that number, well, I actually do have Nebraska a little bit higher here at 9.5, but I don't know what we're getting from UCLA. We do have the travel factored in there, but I think that was more about Rutgers than it was about UCLA and them getting that win. So
Rutgers' defense has been bad the last month.
It really has. It would be a lean to the favorite here, favorite or nothing.
We did open it higher, Alex. We opened at 8, got as low as 6.5. Now sitting at 7. I mean, give Nebraska credit for their response last week after that the beating they took in Indiana, and really, as Jeff said, had a chance to beat Ohio State last week. So Nebraska again looking to get bowl eligible. You're gonna hear that a lot this week and next
moving
week,
forward.
right? There's teams that are really seeking that. And listen, even though they're out of the teams that are trying to get bowl eligible are out of the playoff picture, most of them. The situation is such that, again, it's about building the program, and you've got first and second year coaches that are relying on that for recruiting and transfer purposes.
Vinny, I want to go to the big game on the board first before we hit some other ones we haven't hit, just because this game goes at the top of the hour.
Yes.
Penn State Ohio State. Alex and I already talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm starting to convince myself into maybe taking a little piece of Penn State's money line here. I know how that will probably end if I do. But Drew Howard.
Be confident, Jeffrey. Be confident.
Drew Howard looks like he's going to play.
Yep, he's warming up.
Warming up, and he looks mobile, no knee brace. Ohio State 3 in a game that's going to go a long way to determining what happens over the last month of this college football season, Vinny.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State obviously with one loss already, 1 point, the 1 point loss at Oregon. And Penn State looking to exercise some demons, I guess, right? Never have yet to beat Ohio State and Michigan in the same season. Michigan is not the same team as we saw the last few years, but still going to be a tough out. But this one is one where they have to take care of business if Penn State wants to make the playoff and in a higher seed, right? In a one of the top, certainly looking for the top four. They're going to have to win this game. 111,000 people, I think, at this game today.
That's a lot of people.
I mean, great crowd, great environment. Ohio State, they seem tight sometime, and I get that sense from the coaching staff on down. I mean, I guess when you've got 110,000 people screaming against you, it's bound to influence you. But I heard a quote from Nick Saban, who I thought was interesting, and of course he won a few games in
just a few
tenure. He said, "Are we going to let the pressure affect us, or do we apply the pressure?" So look, if Ohio State has started slow too, and both of these teams have, when you think about it, in a number of their games. So I think whoever gets off to a good start, or the better start, I should say, is certainly going to be able to dictate what happens in this game. But again, opened 4. They took 4 and they took 3.5, and it's sat at 3 with a lot of action. There's more action on this game than a couple of NFL games tomorrow.
I believe
rightfully so, understandably so.
I do want to ask you real quick on a game we touched on earlier. Mm-hmm. Army and Air Force, obviously, the huge news this morning that Bryson Daly's not going to play.
Is out.
So that total action you've gotten has even got more aggressive because of that, because of the injury to Daly, and obviously that total's down.
38.5
38.5 now. I do love 18 and 38.5 still with a backup quarterback here in the Army game.
Well, the thing is that Air Force is just not they
don't have the horses this year.
They don't, and but. You're looking at a game where it went from 23. There was a move to the dog yesterday, and we talked about it. But Chris talked about at length about the action on the total on this game, and got as high as 44. But that predominantly, based on Army and the way they press and the way they. Even though they run the ball, they're predominantly running team. They're so good at it, and they're scoring points. Let's face it. So. But now with the quarterback situation, no surprise that we've had to make this adjustment.
Yeah, still running 87% of the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's Army for you.
But they're running, but at a really good tempo.
Yes.
And putting points on the board. It's not just eating up the clock.
No. Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But I mean, plug in another quarterback.
No, it's.
They may be
it is
okay.
the system, but it certainly a different rhythm, right?
Yeah.
You would think.
Yes.
All right, 3 games for us to hit before we get out of here. And this game, would, in normal circumstances, it would be the one with the hoopla. But because Michigan has been a monster underachiever this year off their national title, this game is just kind of any other game. With the Ducks going to the Big House for the first time as a conference member of the Big Ten. Of course, they do have some history with these two teams playing each other. Oregon won there over a decade ago in 2007 now. That's actually 17 years ago now. Wow. Crazy. 14.5 in this one, Vinny. There is some 14 in the market as well on this one. I'm just curious. How do you think, because this is one of those mid-afternoon games, do you think that the way this game gets gets influenced by how this morning goes, especially that big game in State College?
No, I think it's a matter of the number, right, Jeff? I mean, 14.5, 15, pretty much the same number. I mean, if you think that it's still Michigan, right, and they're at home here, and they're getting better than 2 touchdowns. I think so. If you're looking at Michigan, not necessarily to win the game, taking 5-1 on the money line, but you have to believe that if the key is here. if they can run the ball. We were just talking about Army, right? If they're reliant on running the ball, right, between the tackles predominantly, and we know that Oregon wants to press the pace. So whoever controls the pace is going to be the one that not only wins the game but probably covers the game. But it seems like an awful lot of points, for the home team here.
It does. I made Oregon 12 on the road, but I did not jump in. Michigan's covered in 2 games so far this year, and that's the 2 times I bet them. I'm not going to attempt it anymore. I think that was my last one last week against Michigan State with the Wolverines for the year.
If at the 14 that's out there, I like the Ducks. Now, I don't love laying big numbers in hostile environments like this. But I don't know how Michigan's going to be able to move the ball in this game. That's really the bigger issue.
Oregon's defense is playing better, too.
Look, with the Ducks, through the first month of the year, it looked like they were not interested at all. But that Ohio State game got their minds right. And since then, they covered the huge number at Purdue. Now, granted, I know Purdue stinks. But last week, they dominated Illinois, who had been very pesky across their games. Oregon is a legitimate national title contender.
Oh, no question.
And they, after the first month, they've shown it. And I will say this, Boise State might just be really, really good. There is a real shot that Boise State actually is a legitimate, forget just getting in the playoff because someone from the non-power conference has to. They might actually be one of the 12 best teams in the country when it's all said and done.
Boise is definitely legit. They're very good. Probably the best running back, right, in the country.
I don't think there's a debate on that.
A Heisman candidate. So they're playing good. Their defense is good. And now, are they going to get one of the top 4 seeds? No.
Well,
but can they
get some carnage in the ACC or the Big 12? They might.
Can they get?
They could.
I don't know if they can get a top 4. Can they get a home game in that first round?
I don't see.
Well,
It'd either be the bye or no home game.
If you think they can get a top 4 seed, then you have to believe that they can host a game in that first round. So
we're gonna learn.
They're not going to get a bye, but don't be. If things play out, then don't be shocked.
Blue turf would be fun for a playoff game for sure. All right, 2 SEC games before we get out of here. A&M's on the road at South Carolina. This is a game that happens every year because the SEC had this as a cross game forever for whatever reason. A&M's 3 at South Carolina. Alex, this South Carolina team, other than the Ole Miss game, has been very competitive against high-end competition this year. With that said, I like the favorite at this one. I like Texas A&M. Last week, I think, was a big corner turned for A&M.
Against LSU. Yep.
Where they really did not look good in the first half. Pretty even game. And they just then beat the snot out of LSU the last 30 minutes. And for me, you still have Texas on the board for A&M later in the year. This is a tricky spot.
It is.
Everyone realizes how hard it is to go to Columbia, South Carolina, and win this year. A&M will be focused. They have the right coach. I don't care who's at quarterback. I like A&M here.
I was just going to say that. What are we expecting? Wakeman to start and then Marcel Reed to come in again?
I think we see Reed from the get-go.
Okay.
That's what it's got to be, right? After last week?
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I had to jump in at 3.5 when I saw it yesterday. So
sure.
2-way action again, but not a big bet for me at all. I mean, it's just kind of what you alluded to. South Carolina has been so competitive, and they really are playing the spoiler alert card. So I think they would love nothing more than to make Texas A&M have a loss like the rest of the SEC.
And I will say real quick, 3.5. There's no justifying betting A&M at 3.5. So 100% agree. Like at 3.5, it'd only be the Gamecocks.
Not when 3.5. Not when 3's been there for so long. Right. So sometimes you can't hesitate. Don't talk yourself out of something. And but this is a tricky spot for A&M. They've really responded and done a great job since that first game against that loss against Notre Dame. We talked about it yesterday, Jeff, with Chris. The thing about this game and Texas A&M compared to, let's say, Clemson, who's also won every one of their games since the Georgia loss, A&M's competition has been much stronger. So and I think so. And not to take anything away from Clemson because they've played themselves back into the ACC title picture. But this one here, this is a tricky spot here. But Texas A&M knows it. Good betting game. A lot of action on this game, and I think I think that'll continue right up until kickoff. So total holding pretty steady, not a lot of movement on this. So just a little uptick to the over at 44.5.
And the last game we get today is the Battle of the Bourbon. Tennessee, 17.5-point favorites at home against Kentucky. I took 17.5 with the Wildcats in this game, Alex. Could I get blasted and Tennessee's offense overwhelms? Absolutely. Always in play, especially at home. But I just don't like how Tennessee's looked against the better defenses they played. I know Kentucky's defense has had their struggles. I get it. But at their core, this is still a defense-first team.
Yeah.
That is a lot of points to be getting with a defense-first team. And even though they've had their struggles, I still think they're a pretty reasonable defense when it's all said and done. Take the points for me with Kentucky. If Tennessee overwhelms, so be it.
We'll go with your pick in this game because I have absolutely nothing.
Okay.
After last week, Kentucky is off my bet list.
Kentucky and Stanford are the two that are
You
on
just
the
don't know
no-bet.
which Kentucky defense is going to be there. So, but I mean, it's tough to pass up 2.5 touchdowns. I agree. I mean, it's 17.5, and again, they took 16.5. Right, they laid it late 17 early in the week, then took back 17.5. But now we're back to 17.5 this morning here at South Point.
All right, that's what we got for you this morning. Good luck on all your plays, everyone. We hope you win. We hope you're back with us tomorrow at 9 a.m. because Alex and I will have all the NFL action to talk about right here on Sports by the Book. Drew Dog, Sean, thank you as always. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again tomorrow, 9 a.m. right here on Sports by the Book.